For the honor, for the privilege of sharing some divrei Torah with you in an incredibly challenging time. I still consider myself a young man, but I don't think anybody could have possibly conceived of a reality of the world as we know it and as we see it today. And the question, of course, always for us as religious Jews, as from Yidden, is to ask ourselves, in as much as we can, Ma Hashem Elokecha Sheol Me'imach, what does the Rabbeinu Shalom want from us? And it would be presumptuous, it would be arrogant of me to even pretend to know what the mind, as it were, of the Rabbeinu Shalom, but I think there are some very clear themes, and let's try and explore some of them tonight. One thing is clear before we even start, and that is Judaism has changed. Yiddishkeit has changed. And what I mean by that is, of course, chas v'shalom, we don't mean the halacha hasn't changed. It means that up until this point, we knew. I know what it means to be a frum yid. It's shul, it's going out, it's sitting and learning with a chavrusa. And there is also family, of course. Family is very important. And every single one of the moistos, of the Jewish institutions that until now were the bedrock of Yiddishkeit, with which we consciously or unconsciously equated with Yiddishkeit, the Rabbeinu Shalom has upended that world, and he's told us very clearly, that's not what I want from you. We've lost our way somehow. The olam hachitzon, the world of the external, the superficial, the world of the external. That is not ultimately what Yiddishkeit is about. Lech ami bo b'chadorecha, and he's telling us, go back into the olam hapnim, the world of inner reality. That is crystal clear. Anybody with half a brain realizes that. But let's try and give that a little bit more meaning and depth. Because at the same time, moving from the world of chitzon to the world of pnim, external to internal, at the same time, it challenges us to relate to Hashem and to others in a whole different way. And the uncertainty, because that's what it is. Until now, we had a world where there were parameters of uncertainty which we could deal with. Will the stock market go up a bit or will it go down a bit? What will the crime rate be like? What will the unemployment rate be like? But if you would have said to anybody, and you would have shown them pictures of a road, the central square in Rome, empty, the 5th, 6th Avenue, empty, the planes not flying in the sky down to a tiny fraction, people losing their jobs, not going out, everybody would have said, you're crazy, you've totally lost your marbles. Because these are things that you rely on. These are things this is what makes a Western civilization or any civilization go round. And every single thing in which we have placed store and credibility, and we trusted, every single one of them has been upended. And I try very hard now not to read or to see too much, because it is very clear. Nobody has a clue. Not a clue. Second wave, we will get a second wave, we won't get a second wave. Wear masks, don't wear masks. Of course, and it goes without saying, we have to all be sensible and follow the guidelines to the letter and the spirit. And anybody who doesn't, let's not even go there. The shofech damim. But that's kind of child play. What is going on, the Rabbeinu Shalom is very clearly telling the world, like he did with Mitzrayim, the Kovod of a paroi, Isashehis alalti, this tiny little microbe. Can you catch it a second time? Yes, no, anecdotally, herd immunity, not herd immunity. Go figure. So let's delve into this a little bit. Let's put some Torah onto it, and we've got a lot to get through. When I gave the title, I wasn't just trying to be clever, COVID and Kovod. I genuinely do believe, and I'd like to show you this evening, how absolutely these two things are utterly, utterly connected, and that's actually what it's all about. So let's start the journey, and the journey it is. We leave Egypt, we leave Mitzrayim, and the very next day we have the Korban Omer, which then takes us, it is the transition from Pesach to Shavuos. When we were born as a nation, we were like animal-like. We didn't have values. We were a young infant. We didn't even have a sense of self-awareness. Rav Hutner points out beautifully the first time that we as a nation refer to ourselves in the first person. Ozi v'zimras ka, like a child. Hey, this thing, that's mine at the end of the arm. That's mine. And we progress, and there's a 49-day transition from being Ovdei Avodah Zarah, Memtes Sharei Tumah, from being nowhere and nothing, like an animal. Hence, we bring the Korban Omer, which is from the Sorim and the barley. You all know this. And in 49 days' time, we become, as it were, we develop and we become Shtei Halechem, bread, which is Ma'achal Adam. And this is the pathway. So the Omer provides us with this pathway. There's an incredible Rashi, fascinating Rashi in the Gemara in Rosh Hashanah, when the Gemara says that on Shavuos we are judged for Peiros Ha'ilon, for the fruits of the tree, and therefore we bring Shtei Halechem, 2 loaves of bread. And the question is obvious. If we're being judged al Peiros Ha'ilon, surely bring some oranges, some fruits, some I don't know what. Says Rashi, there's a cryptic Rashi. Says Rashi, V'ani shomati, says Rashi, and I heard a pshat. I'll tell you a pshat, because the author of this statement is Rav Yehuda, and he is l'shitosha in consonance with his opinion elsewhere in the Gemara in Sanhedrin that the Eitz Hadas that Adam HaRishon ate was chita, it was a wheat tree. At one point, wheat was a tree. And indeed, the Gemara tells us that the time will come when Mashiach comes, when everything will be fruit once again, shrink-wrapped, readily packaged. That is the concept of pre. And to highlight that we transitioned from a world where chita was a pre, and that is what we need to somehow try and regain and recapture, that paradise which was lost. The pathway is through chita, because it once was the Eitz Hadas. Let's try and understand that. Adam HaRishon had everything. Literally, he had everything. He was the most magnificent, glorious, ruchniistic creature. The Malachim grilled steaks for him and poured him the finest wines, as the Gemara said, whether that is to be taken literally or not. It means he was an incredible creature. Roya misayfa olam ad sayfa, a glorious, magnificent yitzir kapov shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He had everything. And then Hashem just says to him, P.S. You see that little tree over there? Well, I don't know how little or big it was. You see that tree? Everything else is yours. You have literally, you have the world. You have absolutely everything. Mikol eitz hagon ochel teichel. You see that one? Not that one. And that, indeed, is the entire purpose of creation. Really? For that you needed such an exalted, sublime creature? Yes. And we know what happened. Let's connect this to somebody else who is very, very different, but had a similar sort of dilemma. Haman. Haman has everything. He has power, he has glory, he has money, he has absolutely everything. And he sees a smelly Jew, Bashar HaMelech, asher yikom v'lo yizor mimenu, v'chol ze einenu shoyveli. Everything that I have is naught. It is nothing. It is worthless to me. V'chol ze einenu shoyveli. And he does what he does. And we'll see shortly that this is not a frivolous comparison. This is actually a very deep comparison, because of course the Gemara says Haman min haTorah minayin. Where do we see Haman? The Gemara says in Chulin, Hamin ha'etz. It was that tree. Hamin, which is questioning, doubting. Amalek, famously the Sfarim Hakadoshim says Begematria Sophic, doubt. He brings doubt into the world. He is the embodiment of doubt, the denial of the existence of a creator. The liberal free thinker Hamin, right? And he meets his comeuppance. When? On Tes Zayin Nisan. He is hung on the tree. Which tree, says the Medrash Talpios? It is the Eitz Hadas. He is hung on that very tree. On which date? Tes Zayin Nisan. That is the date. And just before he is hung, what does he do? He encounters Mordechai, as the Gemara says famously, and Mordechai is sitting with the little children, and he says to them, what are you doing? Why are you not crying? Why are you not begging for clemency for your life? And Mordechai says, you see, shortly the Beis HaMikdash will be rebuilt, and today was a day when we would bring a korban omer. A korban omer. What is this korban omer? He says it's a tiny little amount. It's a tiny amount. It's a asiris ha'efa. It is exactly corresponds to the amount that the Rabbeinu Shalom gave us, the mon, homom, hamin. Yeah, it's the exact same amount that he gave us for 40 years and sustained us miraculously through our journey through the Midbar. Signaling, signposting that the Rabbeinu Shalom is in charge and that he runs the world. And Haman, with a prescience, he somehow intuitively realizes his goose is cooked. And he says that your little tiny amount of barley has trumped my 10,000 talents of silver, the Aseres Alofim Kikazov, and he knows that it's game over. So the Omer and Haman are closely related. Let's take this further. Who is going to accompany us on this journey? Because we still have a way to go. And the answer is an incredible personality, Ruby Akiva. Ruby Akiva is going to take us on this journey, and he is going to teach us how to get from Pesach to Shavuos. And I'll throw a curveball in straight away. And although it is not agreed by all opinions by any means, but there is an opinion, just to complete the circle, that when the Gemara says, Mibnei Bonov shel Haman lamdu Torah b'Bnei Barak, that the descendants of Haman learned Torah in Bnei Barak, we know Bnei Barak is where Ruby Akiva was. And there are opinions that say, we know that Ruby Akiva ben Yosef, we know that his father was a ger, and there are opinions that say that Ruby Akiva is Mibnei Bonov shel Haman. We'll come back to that later, to give it resonance, to give it meaning. So this really should be a time, this time of the year, a joyous time. It's Chol HaMoed, as the Ramban tells us. We've gone from becoming alive, becoming free. We've exited Mitzrayim, and we're on our way to the promised land. We're going to get the Torah. And this should be a jubilant, incredible time, and yet it is soured. We know that. It is soured by the Misas Talmidei Ruby Akiva. Ruby Akiva and his legacy, and who and what he is and what he stands for, somehow gets cut short. How and why? Says the Gemara, you will know this. Lo nohagu Kovod zelozeh. And here we begin our journey in earnest. Co-vid and Kovod. Lo nohagu Kovod zelozeh. Note, say all the Mefarshim, God forbid, chas v'shalom, that they were nasty to each other. Of course not. They did not actively, proactively feel that my chavrusa deserves honor. Of course I'll be nice to him. Of course I'll do him a favor. But to honor him, that my peer, that my colleague needs kovod, they somehow didn't realize that. And for that, the legacy of Ruby Akiva, and we have to think about what that means. Hundreds, and I know as it resonates because of what Klal Yisrael is going through at the moment. But just divide, 24,000 Talmidim dying in a few weeks, and they died in 32 days, which of course is Gematria Kovod and Lev. We may come back to that. And they die, how many hundreds of Levias? Didn't do the maths. What a time. And for that, they deserve to die. And according to some, they died in a terrible plague, Asachra, according to Reb Shlomo Gaon. what is so terrible? So they didn't actively and proactively give each other kovod and stand up for each other. I don't know what's so terrible. And the answer is very simple. Well, at one level, the answer is that if you do not understand that it is imperative, that it is absolutely correct to give your chavrusa, your contemporary, your colleague, your peer, kovod, then de facto, you are not a Talmid of Ruby Akiva. The legacy has been broken. The chain is broken. And you cannot distort Torah as it is transmitted, the chain of transmission which depended on these thousands of Talmidim, and it was imperative that they transferred a very specific legacy, the legacy of Ruby Akiva. Ruby Akiva is Moshe Rabbeinu's counterpart. If we get time, we'll be able to go into it a little bit. What Moshe Rabbeinu is to Torah shebichsav, Ruby Akiva is to Torah sheba'al peh. The inner Netzach and Hoid, without going into the depth of it. Rabbi Akiva represents the inner world of Torah. That is the absolute, the world hapnim, the olam hapnim, as we started saying. The olam hapnim of Torah. The inner world of Torah. And if that legacy, if that is distorted and misperceived, it cannot be continued. The legacy is gone. Which then prompts the very obvious question. What on earth is this quality, this midah, this attribute, which is called kovod, which is seemingly so central to the transmission process of Torah? And as I'm about to share with you, it goes much deeper than that. It is something that is innate, intrinsic, fundamental, elemental. It actually is the midah that ought to be the definition of what it means to be human, never mind being a Jew. Kovod. Let's explain this. The famous mirror Mashgiach Rabbi Yerucham asks an amazing question, and he always challenges us to think. And, it's the sort of question that when you hear it, you say, how come I didn't think of that? If, God forbid, somebody's to pick up a gun and shoot somebody else dead, that's one of the 3 worst averas. We know that, ritzicha, right? For which you have to give up your own life, kill or be killed. There is something which is related to this, and that is hamal bin pnei chaveroi barabim. If somebody shames somebody else in public, if somebody abuses somebody else in public and shows them up in a bad light, the opposite of kovod, of course. Malbin pnei chaveroi literally means you make their face, you blanch their face, you make them go white, the blood drains away from them. The Gemara says that the punishment, or rather I should say the consequence, the very real effect of what it is that you have done is ein loy chelek lo'olam haba. You have just severed your connection to eternity. You've any connection to the Rabbi Shalom, to any notion of an afterlife. It's just gone. Ein loy chelek. It's not a punishment. You've just cut that off. You had a capacity, you had an ability. Kol Yisrael yesh lahem chelek lo'olam haba. Everybody has the hardware, the software, Torah, the neshama, the ability to generate, to create olam haba. And if you are malbin pnei chaveroi barabim, you just lost that. You cut the connection. The Wi-Fi, it's gone. Ein lo chelek, you just don't have it. Asks Rabbi Yerucham the obvious question. Hold on a second. If I pick up a gun and shoot the guy dead, then it's terrible. It's one of the 3 worst averas, but I still potentially have a chelek in olam haba. And yet, if I put them to shame in public, then I've lost my chelek in olam haba. Does that sound right? How can that be? What a great question. Let's ask another similar question. A Mishnah that everybody knows, and dare I say it, perhaps we don't think too much about exactly what it means, because it's incredible, it's astounding. The Mishnah says in Pirkei Avos, Eizehu mechubad hamechabed es habriyos. Who is and I will translate it as respectable, worthy of respect. And by the way, again, time doesn't permit tonight, but if you look around society, respect is a massive notion. Or rather, the elevating of the whole concept that there is no respect, whether it's the ripped jeans, whether it's there's so many different things. When I lived in England, I don't know what it's like there now, but teenagers are being knifed in the streets of London in gangs. What's the thing? You dissed me. Disrespect. All about respect. Do you behave like a respectable person? That's another question. We look at our politicians. Look about the notion of respectability. Ezehu mechubad. Who is respectable and thus worthy of respect? Hamchabeid esabrios. Somebody who confers it on others. So that sounds like a bit superficial. So, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. Is it some form of social contract? I mean, obviously not. It's far deeper than that. And the proof, and the reason that the way we can see this is from the proof text. Shene'emar. Says the Mishnah, I'll prove it to you. Shene'emar, Pasuk in the Novi, Ki mechabdai achabeid uvoizai yekolu. Says the Rabbi Shalom. Those that honor me, I will honor. Let's look at that again. Who is respectable? Somebody who gives respect to others. What's the proof? How do I know? Because Hashem says, because those that respect me, I will respect them. Sorry, we weren't talking about respecting you, Hashem. Nice try. We're talking about what's going on? Let's answer these questions with a Mesilas Yesharim, Perek Yud Aleph. The Mesilas Yesharim at the end of Perek Yud Aleph, the longest Perek, after he has, it's sort of the Perek where he goes through the, at the risk of being frivolous, the 7 deadly sins, or he analyzes, he deconstructs kina and ta'ava and ka'as and all the other terrible sins, and he does it in his incredible way with incredible insight and depth. And almost at the end of the Perek, he says the following, and it's so astounding that I'm going to read and translate just literally 2 lines. He says as follows. He says, Yisera olav chemdas hakovod. He says, it is possible for a person it is possible for a person to overcome the desire, all and any other desires, but not Kovod. Not Kovod. Kloloi shel davar, he says, the rule is hakovod hu hadoichek esleiv ha'adam yuser mikol hateshukos v'hachamudos v'hachemdos sheba olam. It is the greatest driving force in man, Kovod, the elemental desire and need for Kovod more than anything else. And he isn't given to hyperbole. He writes very precisely. This is the Ramchal. Kovod is doichek esleiv ha'adam yoser mikol hateshukos v'hachemdos sheba olam. What does this mean? And the answer actually is so incredibly simple. We just need to ask ourselves the following question. What is a human being? What does it mean to be human from a Jewish perspective? What does it mean? The Rabbeinu Shalom is about to create man, and the Malachim say to the Rabbeinu Shalom in Tehillim, Ma enosh kisiz kerenu uven adam kisif kadei. They cannot believe that the Rabbeinu Shalom is going to take a neshama and he's going to put it into a physical, which is the exact opposite, a mortal coil. Tna hoidecha al hashamayim. They implore the Rabbeinu Shalom. This is a lack of Kovod for you, Rabbeinu Shalom. Your glory, your hoid belongs in heaven. And instead you created this thing called man, vatachasrehu ma'at me Elokim, and he is a smidgen less, as it were, than God himself. Vatachasrehu ma'at me Elokim, v'chavod v'hodar ta'atrehu. And you crown him, and that word is an important one. Ta'atrehu, ateres, atorah, crown. V'chavod v'hodar ta'atrehu. Rabbeinu Shalom, what on earth are you thinking? Because man, and this is the answer, man, to be human, we are Kovod. That's what we are. Shehakol bara lichvoidai, the Rabbi Shalom created everything. Toiv yotzar kavod lishmoi, he created so that there be a glorious, magnificent, majestic being that has within him or her Kovod. We have Kovod in us. I'll come back to it a little bit later. Imagine speaking to yourself in the third person, not would the Rav like, would the Rosh Hashiva like, but imagine talking to yourself in the third person. David HaMelech does it the whole time, by the way. Ura kavodi. Lema'an yizamercha chavod. Lochein samach libi vayogel kavodi. Because the nefesh is called Kovod. That's what it is. We are a manifestation made mortal of Kvod Shamayim, of this. We are a divine, majestic being, dignified, glorious. The Alter von Kelm said very famously that Darwin's problem, he said, was that he never saw Rabbi Yisrael Salanta. He never saw a human being. He never saw the princely, noble, dignified majesty of a human being. Somebody that was utterly in control of every aspect, of all of their faculties, every thought, every word was measured. A prince, a regal, noble being. There's no way he could have suggested that we were some sort of evolved and clever primate. We are fundamentally different. And it is Ruby Akiva who teaches us that. Ruby Akiva tells us v'ohavta l'reacha kamoicha ze klal godol b'Torah. To love reacha kamoicha ze klal godol b'Torah. This is the klal godol. And in case, lest we think that this was just some, a nice idea, this is drush, it's homiletics, it's agoda, it's not. It wouldn't find its way into Beis Din, of course not. Oh, really? The putative convert comes to Hillel, and Hillel is sitting there as a dayan and says to him, convert me whilst I stand on one foot, and Hillel says, sure, no problem. That which you wouldn't like done to yourself, don't do unto others, which is just the flip side and the negative of Ruby Akiva's dictum. Why it's in the negative, the Maharsha discusses it, but it's exactly the same. And he says to him, that is Torah, that's it, Mazel Tov, you're a Jew. Oh, by the way, yes, there's some other stuff, Shabbos and Kashrus, obviously. Moedi and Miktsas Kalis and Miktsas Kamuris, of course. But that's what it means to be a Jew. That's what it means. It's actually what it means to be a human being, but maybe leave that for another time. V'idach Perushahi. The rest, he says, Perusha. The entire rest of is no more than commentary. Because if you're ready to learn it, then that's it. 1 second, ask all the Mefarshim. Rashi immediately on the spot asks the question: are you telling me that all of Judaism can be summed up in this, this one statement? I mean, how does Shabbos fit into this? How does there's so many things? Rashi gives some pshatim, but the Maharal in the Siv Ahavas Rea writes as follows. First of all, he says on Rashi, he says Shnei Perushim shel Rashi heim rechokim. He's not overly happy with the pshatim of Rashi. Only the Maharal could do that. Now, listen to his words, because they are astounding. And this is the answer to the 3 questions, if you like, that we have posed. They're all the same thing. Says the Maharal, why should I love you? Because you are a Tselem Elokim, and I am a Tselem Elokim. I am made in the divine image, and I am Kovod, and you are made in the divine image. We are the same. We're cut from the same cloth. We're the same. And I need to recognize that in myself and recognize it in you. This is the point. This is the entire point. Hillel meant it literally. Ki kol haTorah kula, perush. The entire Torah is a recipe. How am I going to reach the goal, the destination? What is the goal? What is the destination? That I should understand and appreciate in myself and in others, that man is b'tselem elikim legamre. That's why, says the Maharal, there are 248 mitzvahs connected, the 248 limbs, because it's all about being able somehow to uncover and reveal the glory, the dignity, the Kovod of what it means to be a human being, to be a divine creature. And he goes on to answer the question that Rabbi Rucham asks. Rabbi Rucham doesn't quote him. Rabbi Rucham says the same answer basically, but I'm going to read this to you because the language of the Maharal is incredible. He says, when a person genuinely is mechabed, gives honor to the other person because they recognize in them an incredible, exalted, sublime, divine creature, you're connected. That's it. You got it. Job done. And therefore he says, when you're malbin pnei chaveiroi, it's poetic. He says, you extinguish the inner light, which is in the ponim, the pnim and ponim of the person. It's just as if you had extinguished that light. That light has gone out. You are not connected to it, and therefore you're not connected to reality. You have severed yourself away. It's mimela. This is what it means to be human. And just to add, that I think is how we understand the mission in Pirkei Avos. Because what does it say? Ezehu mechubad, who is respectable, hamechabed es haberiyos. If you honor a creature, that word beria means if you are a creature, that means there is a creator, and you are created, and that is why I am mechabed you. And now the Mishnah makes perfect sense. Ki mechabdai achabed, because when you are being mechabed, that other person, it means that you have recognized both within yourself and within the other. You've uncovered the secret, the majesty, the divinity of what it means to be a human being. And it's Ruby Akiva who teaches us this. And by the way, very briefly, when is the first time we see this? This is incredible. I only came across this afternoon. And I want to thank you, shiur, because when your back is against the wall and you're pushed to prepare and you think, I came across it, I just want to share it with you. I only thought about this afternoon. Where do we see this idea? Where's this first manifest? Do you know where it is? It's amazing. We come across Amalek for the first time in the end of Beshalach. And Amalek is the one, of course, who denies that, he questions Hamin. There is nothing that is of any value. It's a form of nihilism. Hayesh Hashem bekirbeinu im oyen. Is there anything out there? Or im oyen, maybe there's just nothingness, nihilism. Hayesh Hashem bekirbeinu im oyen. Remember that word yesh, we'll come back to it if time permits. And he manages to infect us with the most pernicious form of doubt, Amalek being Bigamatria Sophic, and that is the doubt in ourselves. Not doubt in ourselves the way that it's portrayed today by all the life coaches. Oh, you're an amazing bubbler, you can do whatever you want. Not that rubbish. But the notion of Hayesh Hashem Bekirbeinu, he preyed on our self-doubt, on our ability, our worthiness, our ability to be able to connect to the Rabbeinu Shalom. Hayesh Hashem Bekirbeinu. Is Hashem indeed Bekirbeinu? Are we this magnificent creature, or has it somehow lost it? And of course, therefore, I heard from my father Shlita, therefore in the Mulchama, how does it work? How do we win Amalek? Midah kneged midah, because we're meshabdim es libam. Lev is also Kovod, of course, 32. Meshabdim es libam, we focused inwards and we davened. We didn't connect to the external world, the world of the external. We connected to the Rabbeinu Shalom, that, and boy, did he show us, Yesh Hashem B'kirbeinu. He's always there for us, as Rashi says there. But listen to what triggers this war. How does it come about? Moshe Rabbeinu turns to Yehoshua and he does the most amazing thing. And he says, B'char lanu anoshim. Please choose men for us, says Rashi. Mikan omru chachamim, yihi chvoid talmidcha chaviv alecha k'shelach, u'kvoid chavercha k'moira rabach. He turns to Yehoshua and says, this is how we defeat Amalek. We defeat Amalek's nihilism, existentialism, their doubt, their gnawing doubt, their lack of recognition of there being anything that is worthy of any respect at all, their brazenness. And we recognize that we have brothers out there that need saving. And those brothers were the Onon itself spat them out, thus calling into question, as it were, maybe Hashem has rejected them, but he's testing us. Will we go the extra mile for our brothers? Because they are our brothers. They are B'Tselem Elokim, and so are we. And Moshe Rabbeinu prefaces his remarks by saying, B'char lonu anoshim, Yehoshua, his Talmud, please choose for us. And he equates him. He gives him, he's his Talmud, not even his colleague, his peer, and he gives him the dignity, the Kovod. Mikan, says Rashi, this is where we see it. This is where we learn it from. How beautiful. Oh, time is hurrying along. We need to hurry up. So the nefesh is called Kovod. That is what the nefesh is called. Adam Harishon, says the Gemara in Sanhedrin, again playing on a posuk in Tehillim. What happens is Adam Harishon had this great, all the Kovod, and he lost it. And you know what posuk the Gemara invokes to depict his exit from Gan Eden? Adam biyakar v'lo yolin. Man in his yokar, in his glory, which by the way is the same gematria as Omer. V'lo yolin, but he couldn't even keep it overnight. So sad. He was given everything. He had everything. And he threw away his yokar. And his counterpart, the one that he gives 70 years to, David HaMelech. David HaMelech has nothing of his own. He is total reflection of the Kovod of the Rabbeinu Shalom. What does David HaMelech say? Ura Kovodi, awaken my Kovod. You've made it overnight. O Ira Shachar. Let's go and wake up the dawn together in praise and glory of the Rabbeinu Shalom. Because Adam, who gave me my years, my 70 years, he was Adam biyokar v'lo yolin, bal yolin. He didn't manage to keep his yokar overnight. I have a new morning. I have kept my yokar overnight, and I acknowledge it first thing in the morning. Ura kavodi, arise, awaken my glory, my kavod, referring to himself in the third person, a recognition of his self-worth, of his divine essence, or ira shachar. To try and start wrapping up some of the threads, let's delve a little bit into Ruby Akiva's life. Just a little bit. Who was Ruby Akiva? How does Ruby Akiva, especially for what we said before, according to some, Ruby Akiva is Mibnei Bonav Shel Haman that Lamdu Torah Bibnei Brak. That means he has to reverse that. And therefore, of course, it makes sense that if Amalek is Lo Yorei Elokim, then Rabbi Akiva is the one who comes along, and when Shimon Ha'amsuni in the Gemara in Kiddushin is stumped because he's trying to learn something out of every S in the Torah, and he comes to S, Hashem Elokecha Tira, and he's stumped. Who could we possibly fear? And who could be worthy of awe and reverence like the Rabbeinu Shalom? Darash Ruby Akiva. Ruby Akiva, who comes from Amalek, who is the Lo Yorei Elokim, Darash Ruby Akiva, with every fiber of his being, L'Rabbis Talmidei Chachamim. Kavoid Chavercha K'moira Rabbach. Es Hashem Elokecha Tira L'Rabbis Talmidei Chachamim. Ruby Akiva was a person who was utterly, as I'm going to show you in a minute, utterly, he was the glorious, magnificent human being. We'll see shortly that he even saw things that Moshe Rabbeinu didn't. Who is Ruby Akiva? His Rebbe, Rabbi Eliezer, says the Gemara in Tanis, davens and davens and davens, and the rains don't fall. And Rabbi Akiva goes to the Amud and says, Avinu Malkeinu ein lanu melech ela ota, and the rains fall. And the Gemara says, does that mean that he's greater than his Rebbe, Rabbi Eliezer? And the Gemara says, no, of course not, but he is ma'avir al midosav. He gives in to others. He doesn't stand on his own kovod. He is somebody who Chazal say is the Eved. He is the servant in the famous story of the guy who works for somebody else for 3 years, and then he comes at the end, everybody knows the story, and he says, give me my wage. He says, I've got nothing, give me gold, give me silver, give me this. Nothing. He says, okay, no problem. He walks away. He's done the Kavzachos. Who is this? Says the Sheiltos, this is Ruby Akiva when he was an Amorit. This is who Ruby Akiva is. The Gemara says in Menachos that Yehuda ben Nehemiah won an argument with Rabbi Tarfon. Sohavu Pomav, and his face lights up. Imagine that you stumped the Gobel Hadair, and this fellow, this Yehuda ben Nehemiah, Sohavu Pomav, his face lights up. The Rabbi Akiva says, T'miyahani im ta'arich yomim. This, I doubt very much he's going to continue living. Says the Gemara there in Menachos, I say haperek prois hapesachoya. It was the time of the Omer. Kashe olisi la'atzeres. When I came back at Atzeres, Sha'alti, I asked, where is he? And they said, he's gone. Rabbi Akiva was snui umali, says the Gemara in Ksubasayin base. He had sneers. He was toiv labrios. When Rabbi Akiva dies, says the Gemara in Soita bottle Kovod HaTorah. Reb Shimon ben Yochai, his Talmud says, he zoharu b'midoisai. Look at my midas, because my midas, says Reb Shimon ben Yochai, are a truma of the midas of Ruby Akiva. Ruby Akiva is this incredible person who is so connected to the world of Pnim, the inner world, not the external world. Ruby Akiva can laugh when all around are crying because he sees the glory of the Ribbono Shel Olam. One time, it's not one time, but there's one major occasion when he cries. And that is, says the Gemara, when the Hashem Yislach La, when somebody thinks they're about to do an Aveira, they want to eat a piece of bacon, Chas v'Shalom, and actually, Nebuch, they eat a piece of kosher meat. Says Bocha Ruby Akiva. Then he cries. Do you know why? Because that's a desecration. When a Yid has Bechira, a Jew has Bechira, when the Ribbono Shel Olam makes foxes kavot in the Kodesh HaKadoshim, that's him. That's the Ribbono Shel Olam doing it. When the Ribbono Shel Olam makes his Rebbe, Rabbi Eliezer, die in great pain, that's the Ribbono Shel Olam doing it. But when a Jew abuses their inner dignity, their ability to choose, to have real Bechira, there is no greater tragedy than the degradation of the Kvod Shamayim that is within you by choosing to go against the Ribbono Shel Olam. And he cries. And now let's wrap up the threads. We are told that Omer, the word Omer, the Sfarim HaKadoshim say, is the same gematria as Yokar, glory, that makes sense now, Kovod, and Shai. Now that word Shai it means a present, but if you flip it round, it also means Yesh, it means a total existence. And we alluded to it a little bit before. Amalek calls all of existence into question. Hayesh Hashem b'kirbeinu im oyed. And Osid HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we say at the end of Shas, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to eventually litein l'chol tzaddik v'tzaddik. He will give every tzaddik and tzaddik. So there's two tzaddik in there for some reason. Litein l'chol, could have just said l'chol tzaddik, but he's litein l'chol tzaddik v'tzaddik 310 oilamos. Shenemar lahanchil oy havai yesh. There's connection to reality. To each tzaddik and tzaddik. Because when you add up those two yeshs, the two 310s, you have, of course, the Keser, glory, 620. When there is a tzaddik and another tzaddik, when there is one Yid and one Talmud Chacham who is able to acknowledge and to recognize another one, then the double Shai, as it were, goes together and creates a Keser, which is 620. And that's why when Moshe Rabbeinu comes across Ruby Akiva in Shamayim, in the Gemara, and says, what was Ruby Akiva doing? He was kosher ksorim. He was tying these ksorim, these crowns, of putting his different Talmidim together and getting them to acknowledge and realize the grandeur that they have within each other, the Tselem Elikim that is within each other, that together they should have been a tzaddik v'tzaddik. The Kovod v'hodor te'atrehu, the keser. And when that didn't happen, all was lost. When Kovod, as the fundamental basis of what it means to be human and kal v'chomer to be a yid, when that is lost, then Ruby Akiva and everything is lost. Moshe Rabbeinu asks the Rabbeinu Shalom, Hareini na es kavodecha. Show me your Kovod, Rabbeinu Shalom. Because Shahakil bara lechoidei. I want to see your Kovod. And Chazal say, what does that mean? I want to understand how you interact with Rishoyim and Tzadikim and who gets punished and who doesn't. And he sees Ruby Akiva. And Ruby Akiva is being tortured and dying a terrible death. And all the Malachim, they cry, and everybody, they can't take it. And the Rabbeinu Shalom says, quiet. Kach ola b'machshava lefonai. This was my thought, lefonai. What does that mean? Says the Kli Yakar. Moshe Rabbeinu is told, v'ra'isa es achoyrei. You will see my back. Sometimes after the event, you'll be able to understand the Kovod Shamayim. Uponai, that word again, lo yiro, that you can't see. It is not possible to see as we face something exactly what the Rabbeinu Shalom has in mind. Says the Yalkut, I want to read you a beautiful Yalkut. Says the Yalkut on a posuk in Eov, V'chol yokar ro'asa einoi ze Ruby Akiva. Kol yokar ro'asa einoi. The entire, everything, all of yokar, Ruby Akiva sees. Says the Medrash, Dvarim shaloi niglu leMoshe miSinai niglu leRuby Akiva. Things that Moshe Rabbeinu was unable to see and perceive, Ruby Akiva was able to see. V'chol yokar, all of yokar. What is yokar? Back to Purim. Says the Kli Yakar. In Tefillin, there are the name of Hashem, Shin, Daled, and Yud is spelt out. The Daled is in the knot at the back of the Tefillin. And then we have in the front, we have the Shin and we have the Yud on the Shel Rosh. Moshe Rabbeinu sees Kesher Tefillin Hero Le'onov. He sees the Kesher Tefillin, he sees the Daled. But the Shin and the Yud, the Yesh, the Shai, the Yokar, the fullness of the glory, the Kol Yokar, that is missing. But Ruby Akiva, the quintessential manifestation of Kvod Shamayim that comes from a place, Mibnei Bonov Shel Haman, as we said, V'lo Yorei Elokim, Hayesh Hashem im Ayin. And of course, they write themselves out of the script into oblivion. V'acharisai adei oved. It is Ruby Akiva who leads the way. And he teaches us, V'chol yokar ro'asa einoi. He sees the front. And then when they are peeling away his skin, and he's accepting this with equanimity, because he is so connected to the Olam Mapnim, that he said, I've been done my whole life to be able, I've waited for this moment to be able to show that it's real. And they're all, the Malachim are shouting, and the Rabbeinu Shalom says, shh. Ruby Akiva is the one who can see before me. He can see the Shin and the Yud. He can see the Yesh. He can see the Yokar. And when his Talmidim didn't live up to that, and they did not see in each other the Kvod Shamayim, the Kovod of what it means, of their peers, of their colleagues, then it was game over. That Torah was lost, and so we mourn. And so even as we are inside our homes, and we're being forced to look inwards, and especially as this shiur was billed for women, Kol Kvuda Bas Melech Panim. The entire Kovod, your entire Kovod. Men have, in a way, have a greater challenge because they have to come into contact usually with externals. And there the ego takes over, and there it becomes much more complicated. But women intuitively know the Kol Kvuda Bas Melech Panima. And at this moment in time, the Rabbeinu Shalom is challenging us all. go back into the Olam Hapnim. Leave Mitzrayim, bring a korban of Machal Behema on a day when Haman gets his comeuppance by being hung on the Eitz Hadas. After questioning Hamin Ha'etz, acknowledge me and my involvement in the world by bringing a small amount of Omer, and listen to Ruby Akiva. Listen to Ruby Akiva, listen to the Rebbe that we never had, who teaches us, Zeklal Godel B'Torah, to be a human being is to be B'Tselem Elokim, Kovod Chavercha K'moira Rabach. And then when we exit, which we will soon in Yetz Hashem, as David HaMelech says in the end, Hitzio mi masger nafshi, take us out of lockdown. But now I'll be a bit different person, Lahoidos es shemecha, to acknowledge you, to thank you, to show Maloi chol ha'oretz kavoidoi, ubehecholoi kuloi omer kovod. And then the Rabbi Shalom hopefully will point to us and turn to us and say, Bi yachtiru tzadikim. You will give me back my keser. Each of you will be a yesh on their own and connected to Olam Haba and the Shai Olamis, and together you will give the Yitnu Lecha Keser Melucha. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I'll unmute everyone so they can say their own thank you.
Wat will den Namen sagen?